Oh, we are getting wild tonight, you guys. New camera angle for the evening reading. Try to contain your excitement. We're going back into The Wisdom of Insecurity by Alan Watts. And we are picking up at page 109, a chapter titled The Transformation of Life. Now, there have been many theories about the unity of the universe, but they have not delivered human beings from the isolation of egotism, from conflict, and from the fear of life. Because there is a world of difference between an inference and a feeling. You can reason that the universe is a unity without feeling it to be so. You can establish the theory that your body is a movement and an unbroken process which includes all suns and stars, and yet continue to feel separate and lonely. For the feeling will not correspond to the theory until you have also discovered the unity of inner experience. Despite all theories, you will feel that you are isolated from life so long as you are divided within. But you will cease to feel isolated when you recognize, for example, that you do not have a sensation of the sky. You are that sensation. For all purposes of feeling, your sensation of the sky is the sky, and there is no you apart from what you sense, feel, and know. This is why the mystics and many of the poets give frequent utterance to the feeling that they are one with the all, or united with God, or as Sir Edwin Arnold expressed it, foregoing self, the universe grows I. Let me say that one more time. I don't want to do Sir Edwin Arnold wrong here. Foregoing self, the universe grows I. Sometimes, indeed, this feeling is purely sentimental, the poet being one with nature, just so long as she is on her best behavior. And then he has a little poem here. I live not in myself, but I become portion of that around me. And to me, high mountains are a feeling, but the hum of human cities torture. I can see nothing to loathe in nature, save to be a link, reluctant, in a fleshly chain, clasped among creatures, when the soul can flee, and with the sky, the peak, the heaving plain of ocean, or the stars, mingle, and not in vain. This rural rapture from Byron, Byron, okay, I had no idea who that was, is quite beside the point. He has only come to terms with nature to the extent that he has befriended his own human nature. The fly likes the sweetness of the honey, but not its stickiness, which makes him a link, reluctant in a fleshly chain, clasped among creatures. The sentimentalist does not look into the depths of nature and see sluggish existences grazing there, suspended or slowly crawling close to the bottom, the leaden-eyed shark, the walrus, the turtle, the hairy sea leopard, and the stingray. Passions there, wars, pursuits, tribes, sight in those ocean depths, breathing that thick, breathing air. Man has to discover that everything which he beholds in nature, the clammy, foreign-feeling world of the ocean's depths, the wastes of ice, the reptiles of the swamp, the spiders and scorpions, the deserts of lifeless planets, has its counterpart within himself. He is not, then, at one with himself until he realizes that this underside of nature and the feelings of horror which it gives him are also I. For all the qualities which we admire or loathe in the world around us are reflections from within, though from a within that is also a beyond, unconscious, vast, unknown. Let me read that last sentence one more time. For all the qualities which we admire or loathe in the world around us are reflections from within, though from a within that is also a beyond, unconscious, vast, unknown. Our feelings about the crawling world of the wasp's nest, I struggle with S's, guys, the wasp's nest, Our feelings about the crawling world of the wasp's nest and the snake pit are feelings about hidden aspects of our own bodies and brains, and of all their potentialities for unfamiliar creeps and shivers, for unsightly diseases and unimaginable pains. I do not know whether it is true, but it is said that some of the great sages and holy men have an apparently supernatural power over beasts and reptiles, which are always dangerous to ordinary mortals. If this is true, it is certainly because they are able to live at peace with the beasts and reptiles in themselves. They need not call the wild elephant Behemoth or the sea monster Leviathan. They address them familiarly as Longnose and Slimy. So they're the old pals. The sense of unity with all, or with the all, is not, however, a nebulous state of mind, a sort of trance in which all form and distinction is abolished, as if man and the universe merged into a luminous mist of pale mauve. Just as process and form, energy and matter, myself and experience are names for and ways of looking at the same thing, so one and many, unity and multiplicity, identity and difference, are not mutually exclusive opposites. They are each other, much as the body is its various organs. To discover that the many are the one and that the one is the many is to realize that both are words and noises representing what is at once obvious to sense and feeling and an enigma to logic and description. I'll play that last one back one more time. Just as process and form, energy and matter, myself and experience are names for and ways of looking at the same thing, so one and many, unity and multiplicity, identity and difference are not mutually exclusive opposites. They are each other, much as the body is its various organs. It's all part of one whole, in other words. To discover that the many are the one and that the one is the many is to realize that both are words and noises representing what is at once obvious to sense and feeling and an enigma to logic and description. Again, we come back to this repeated theme through this kind of literature of a intelligence or an intelligence that is deeper than the usual judging, intellect-driven mind. There's something beyond that. He continues. A young man in search of spiritual wisdom put himself under the instruction of a celebrated holy man. The sage made him his personal attendant, and after some months the young man complained that thus far he had received no instruction. "What do you mean?" exclaimed the holy man. "When you brought me my rice, didn't I eat it? When you brought me my tea, didn't I drink it? When you made salutations to me, didn't I return them? When have I ever neglected to give you instruction?" "I'm afraid I don't understand," said the young man, totally mystified. "When you want to see into it," answered the sage, "see into it directly. When you begin to think about it, it is altogether mist." And then there's another poem here. Little allergy itch. Sniffles over here. Okay, back to the poem. Plucking chrysanthemums along the east fence, gazing in silence at the southern hills, the birds flying home in pairs, through the soft mountain air of dusk. In these things there is a deep meaning, but when we are about to express it, we suddenly forget the words. The meaning is not the contemplative, twilight, and perhaps superficially idyllic atmosphere beloved of Chinese poets. This is already expressed, and the poet does not gild the lily. He will not, like so many Western poets, turn philosopher and say that he is one with the flowers, the fence, the hills, and the birds. This too is gilding the lily, or his own Oriental idiom, putting legs on a snake. For when you really understand that you are what you see and know you do not run around the countryside thinking, I am all this, there is simply all this. The feeling that we stand face to face with the world, cut off and set apart, has the greatest influence on thought and action. Philosophers, for example, often fail to recognize that their remarks about the universe apply also to themselves and their remarks. If the universe is meaningless, so is the statement that it is so. One more time. If the universe is meaningless, so is the statement that it is so. If this world is a vicious trap, so is its accuser, and the pot is calling the kettle black. In the strictest sense, we cannot actually think about life and reality at all, because this would have to include thinking about thinking, thinking about thinking about thinking, and so ad infinitum. One can only attempt a rational, descriptive philosophy of the universe on the assumption that one is totally separate from it. But if you and your thoughts are part of this universe, you cannot stand outside them to describe them. This is why all philosophical and theological systems must ultimately fall apart. To know reality, you cannot stand outside it and define it. You must enter into it, be it, and feel it. Speculative philosophy, as we know it in the West, is almost entirely a symptom of the divided mind, of man trying to stand outside himself and his experience in order to verbalize and define it. It is a vicious circle, like everything else which the divided mind attempts. On the other hand, the realization that the mind is actually undivided must have a corresponding and equally far-reaching influence on thought and action. As the philosopher tries to stand outside himself, his thought, so as we have seen, the ordinary man tries to stand outside himself and his emotions and sensations, his feelings and desires. The result is a fantastic confusion and misdirection of conduct, which discovery of the mind's unity must bring to an end. So long as the mind is split, life is perpetual conflict, tension, frustration, and disillusion. Suffering is piled on suffering, fear on fear, and boredom on boredom. The more the fly struggles to get out of the honey, the faster he is stuck. Under the pressure of so much strain and futility, it is no wonder at all that men seek release in violence and sensationalism, and in the reckless exploitation of their bodies, their appetites, the material world, and their fellow men. What this must add to the necessary and unavoidable pains of existence is incalculable. Incalculable. What this must add to the necessary and unavoidable pains of existence is incalculable. But the undivided mind is free from this tension of trying always to stand outside oneself and to be elsewhere than here and now. Each moment is lived completely, and there is thus a sense of fulfillment and completeness. The divided mind comes to the dinner table and pecks at one dish after another, rushing on without digesting anything to find one better than the last. I botched that sentence. The divided mind comes to the dinner table and pecks at one dish after another, rushing on without digesting anything to find one better than the last. It finds nothing good because there is nothing which it really tastes. When, on the other hand, you realize that you live in, that indeed you are this moment now and no other, that apart from this there is no past and no future, you must relax and taste to the full, whether it be pleasure or pain. At once it becomes obvious why this universe exists, why conscious beings have been produced, why sensitive organs, why space, time, and change. The whole problem of justifying nature, of trying to make life mean something in terms of its future, disappears utterly. Obviously, it all exists for this moment. It is a dance, and when you are dancing, you are not intent on getting somewhere. You go round and round, but not under the illusion that you are pursuing something or fleeing from the jaws of hell. We'll play that back. The whole problem of justifying nature, of trying to make life mean something in terms of its future, disappears utterly. Obviously, it all exists for this moment. It is a dance. And when you are dancing, you are not intent on getting somewhere. You go round and round, but not under the illusion that you are pursuing something or fleeing from the jaws of hell. How long have the planets been circling the sun? Are they getting anywhere? And do they go faster and faster in order to arrive? How often has the spring returned to the earth? To the earth. Ooh, excuse me. Yikes. Mm. Okay, we're back to normal. How often has the spring returned to the earth? Does it come faster and fancier every year? To be sure, to be better than the last spring? I'm adding the question myself. Oh, we're falling off the rails, guys. This happens. This happens sometimes. Usually around the time I need to cough. We're going to give them the reality, folks. Nothing but the reality. Okay. How often has the spring returned to the earth? Does it come faster and fancier every year to be sure to be better than last spring and to hurry on its way to the spring that shall outspring all springs? The meaning and purpose of dancing is the dance. Like music, also, it is fulfilled in each moment of its course. You do not play a sonata in order to reach the final chord. And if the meanings of things were simply in ends, composers would write nothing but finales. It might, however, be observed in passing that the music specially characteristic of our culture is progressive in some respects, and does at times seem to be decidedly on its way to a future climax. But when it gets there, it does not know what to do with itself. Beethoven, Brahms, and Wagner were particularly guilty of working up to colossal climaxes and conclusions and then blasting away at the same chord over and over again, ruining the moment by being reluctant to leave it. I love that line. Ruining the moment by being reluctant to leave it. When each moment becomes an expectation, life is deprived of fulfillment, and death is dreaded, for it seems that here expectation must come to an end. While there is life, there is hope, and if one lives on hope, death is indeed the end. But to the undivided mind, death is another moment, complete like every moment, and cannot yield its secret unless lived to the full. And I laid me down with a will. Final stretch, guys. Death is the epitome of the truth that in each moment we are thrust into the unknown. Here, all clinging to security is compelled to cease. And wherever the past is dropped away and safety abandoned, life is renewed. Death is the unknown which all of us lived before birth. One more time. There's a lot in this one. Death is the epitome of the truth that in each moment we are thrust into the unknown. Here, all clinging to security is compelled to cease, and wherever the past is dropped away and safety abandoned, life is renewed. Death is the unknown in which all of us lived before birth. Nothing is more creative than death, since it is the whole secret of life. It means that the past must be abandoned, that the unknown cannot be avoided, that I cannot continue, and that nothing can be ultimately fixed. When a man knows this, he lives for the first time in his life. By holding his breath, he loses it. By letting it go, he finds it. Hope you'll have a wonderful evening. Good night.